The True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. It's Thursday, April 21st, 6 p.m. here in New York. What time is it in Australia?
Friday, 8 a.m, up bright and early this morning.
Oh my goodness.
Ready to go. I know. We're recording a bit earlier because I've got a dental appointment today that I totally didn't remember. So, yeah.
So exciting.
I know. And a lot happened this morning in terms of the case that we're going to talk about today. So, yeah, it's been a day already.
Yeah. For me, it's literally been a day because it's 6 p.m.
Oh, gosh. Crazy.
It's super windy here right now, so I'm sorry if you hear any wind background noise. As we've mentioned, we don't have our own fancy recording studio. We're not that big of a deal yet. Maybe one day. But right now, if you hear some wind, I hope you're not too upset by it. I don't think you will be because most of you seem pretty nice, but you never know.
I was just saying before too, I woke up during the night a few times because the rain was so heavy, like heavy enough that it woke me up. So it looks relatively clear now. So hopefully we'll be able to get through it without a typhoon, hurricane coming through.
Imagine if we got like a bad review, like 1 star, and it was like too much wind and rain noise, unprofessional.
Oh my gosh.
Or just always talking about the weather. We just like the weather. I don't know. It's just fun to compare.
Everyone has weather, so
yeah, and we're like opposite.
Everyone can relate.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any exciting weekend plans?
No, pretty quiet here. It's a weird kind of time here because we had Easter and then next week we also get another public holiday on Monday, I think it is, for Anzac Day, which is kind of like our Memorial Day. So it's kind of all up and down all over the place at the moment. Yeah, but no, nothing really too exciting. Pretty quiet, I think. What about you?
Well, tomorrow in the morning, I'm going to look at a wedding venue and do a tasting. So I figure at least I'll get some snacks out of it. We went and looked at another place a couple weeks ago and we like that one, so we'll see. And then I have to go into the city to go to the show at Madison Square Garden for this. It's like a live read of a TV show called Letterkenny, but it's for my boyfriend's friend's birthday, so we're all going. Hopefully I don't get like shot on the subway or anything.
That'll be fun, something different.
Yeah, if I don't get shot.
I know a few people have been saying that you should go live. You should have gone live as well with this case that we're going to talk about today, but I guess there's no need anymore now.
Yeah, now, I mean, it would always be weird, but now it'd be especially weird. But yeah, so the case we're going to talk about today, which has been big news the last couple of days about Orsolya Gaal. It happened in Queens, so not super far from me, especially since I'm going to the city. But yeah, I definitely won't be going to Queens. Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah, so this case literally has only been going for not even a week today. And the thing with this case is it's been a big mess. There's been a lot of, quote, source information, which, you know, the sources aren't named, a lot of conflicting information. And basically it's a big jumble. We've had the blog going the whole time, so we've reported basically everything that has been said. So it may seem a little bit confusing at times, but I think it's important that we kind of do it chronologically and report everything that was said. So if you're wondering, you're like, but they said the opposite to that. You know, we absolutely know, but this is what was reported at the time as the case was unfolding.
And once we get to the end, we'll do
a wrap up.
What seems to be the correct story at this moment.
Yeah. What we actually know now that there's some actual things happening, not just gossip and rumors and source, you know, unknown source information.
Yeah. New York City, a lot of sources.
I feel like that I don't remember a case that has been this messy for a long time. There's like, everyone is like, what is going on? There was just so much different information and kind of nothing confirmed for a very long time.
It was also it was rapid fire and it all wrapped up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and there was a lot of strange people who kind of inserted themselves in this case as well. Like, what is this person talking for? What is this person doing? So it was a very unusual one.
Today we're going to be talking about the murder of Orsolya Gaal from Queens, New York in Forest Hills. And thankfully, timing was on our side. For once at this one, there was the big update of the arrest this morning. So we'll just get started at the beginning and we'll get to present time. So we started doing the notes for this episode on April 17th, 2022 in USA time. And at that time, we learned that Orsolya Gaal, she was a 51-year-old woman from Queens, and that she'd been found dead, stuffed in a bag in a park near her home. Big news because it's very strange, obviously.
Police are trying to figure out how a woman in Queens died and who stuffed her body into a duffel bag then dumped her on the side of the road. A person walking spotted the bag early today on Metropolitan Avenue in Forest Hills, Queens. There are two crime scenes right now. There's also tape surrounding a home a few blocks away. News 4's Adam Harding live in Forest Hills with what police say led them to that home. Adam?
And according to sources, Gilma, it was a trail of blood that brought investigators here to Juno Street behind us. And you can see police have this home cordoned off. They've been here since early this morning. The question in front of police and neighbors is how did this happen and why did this happen? As you mentioned, Gilma, there are two crime scenes. Let's first show you the scene earlier this morning. This is around between 8 and 9 this morning, right here in Queens, not far from Metropolitan Ave at Union Turnpike. According to investigators, they say a woman's body was found inside a duffel bag or a hockey bag right in a grassy area right there. We saw police in that area for several hours as they were investigating. A short time later, sources say a trail of blood brought them a few blocks away to this residential neighborhood where we are right now. Again, this is on Juno Street. Investigators right now have not yet identified who the victim at this point is, but police have been here since early this morning as investigators try to piece together what exactly happened in this gruesome, horrific scene. Neighbors, too, are left wondering what went wrong.
Orsolya, a little background on her. She was married to a man named Howard Klein, and they had two teenage sons together. One was 13 and one was 17, and it seems like their names are Jamie and Leo. Jamie is the 17-year-old and Leo is the 13-year-old. Howard, the husband, his Twitter bio says RK Equity and lithium ion bull and rock stock channel equals lithium battery and technology, metals, intelligence, not advice, DYOR. No idea what any of that means, but it all sounds very smart and professional.
Yeah, and successful maybe.
Mm-hmm. So we looked at the RK Equity website and it says, RK Equity Advisors is leading proprietary research and capital markets advisory firm with a global reach focused on the lithium-ion battery materials supply chain. Then it also goes to our team section. It speaks a little bit about his role in the company. It says RK Equity is led by Howard Klein and Rodney Hooper, each with over 25 years experience in investment banking, portfolio management, corporate advisory, equity and derivative sales, and investor relations. So seems to be very successful, or at least knows how to use a lot of big words. We couldn't really find anything career-wise for Orsolya, so it seems like she may have been raising the kids. A quote from one of the neighbors said that she was a stay-at-home mom and that she spent a lot of time with the kids. They lived on Juno Street in Forest Hills, New York. There's a real estate listing on it. There's pictures of the house because for some reason they put the house on the
reward flyer.
Yeah, and the looking for information flyers. Someone actually, because I posted on Instagram and I was like, does anybody else think it's weird that they used a picture of the house instead of a picture of her? And someone messaged and said, it's because it's a homicide.
That's very clever.
Yeah. I'll have to look up who it was to give them credit. But someone else said it might be because maybe if someone was driving by and saw the house around that time or something. But I don't know. I still think it's weird.
Yeah, the house has been kind of subject of a lot of discussion online too because the house is worth over $2 million. And when you look at the house, it's nothing special. It's very neat and tidy. But I know New York property
welcome
prices
to New
are
York.
crazy. Yeah, but everyone's like $2 million for that. It's nothing amazing for $2 million.
Having like an actual house in like the city area, expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
So like we mentioned, there's been a lot of weird stuff going on with this case. I'll probably say the word weird 20 times because we always do. But initially it was also reported that the couple's oldest son was reported missing in 2004, which doesn't really make sense because he would have literally been a baby. Like that was when he was born, or the year before he was born or something. Like,
no, it was the year he was born. We were trying to work it out, and basically, yeah, he would have been an infant.
Yeah,
if he did go missing in 2004.
Yeah, so allegedly that happened. We can't really find any other information on that. And Howard also reported Orsolya missing on May 29th, 2020. We can't find anything else really about that either, except that he ended up telling police that she'd been found safe. So already starting off confusing.
Yeah.
So like we said, it seems like there's been a lot of misinformation with this case, kind of a lot of info coming from sources. So we're going to go through some of that. But what we know for sure is that Orsolya was seen alive in the backyard by her neighbors on Friday, April 15th. She shared a common backyard with her neighbors, and one of the neighbors, John Blankson, said that he saw her in the backyard Friday, and he said, Saturday morning, we were like, why can't we hear the dog this morning? It's super shocking. And he said they were a normal family. So it turns out Howard and the eldest son were apparently out of state at the time. Howard posted a tweet that he has since deleted saying that they arrived in Portland, Oregon again. And
can't get away from it.
I said it right this time, though. And we're also planning to visit Ann Arbor, Michigan. The tweet said, just landed Portland, Oregon before evaluating Ann Arbor again with my 17-year-old son. It seems like they were visiting colleges. Some people question if that's weird on Easter/Passover weekend. It seems like they were Jewish because they also talk about a bar mitzvah. I mean, I don't know if it's weird. I'm not super religious, so I celebrate Easter, but
because I included that kind of comment because I saw a few people like, why are they doing this on Easter? But then other comments have been, well, Passover, and other comments have been like, no, we don't even like acknowledge it at our campus. It's an absolutely normal time to do it. So I think maybe it was just an initial question that was raised, but it ended up being not actually entirely strange. I think the strangest thing is that Orsolya didn't go with them.
Yeah, but
you'd think that she would want to check it out too. But
maybe they just didn't want to drag the other kid along.
Yeah. And
it's
I have
expensive.
also read, which hasn't, exactly, to travel around holiday time too. But I have also read that Orsolya was maybe meant to fly out and that the dog may have been boarded. And this is all obviously another rumor, which we don't even know if it's true or not. But maybe she was going to fly out later or, whatever. But yeah, at the time she wasn't with them.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of people talking about how expensive plane tickets are. So maybe just didn't want to spend the money, didn't feel like going.
I've got my own other little theory on that, which we'll talk about at the end. But
so John, the neighbor, also spoke about how Howard had COVID recently and an event was canceled. He said, we were going to go to the son's bar mitzvah a few weeks ago, but the father got COVID, so the bar mitzvah was canceled. Damn, what a bummer. They canceled the whole thing because the dad has COVID. He could just stay home. So Pix11 was reporting that Orsolya told her youngest son that she was going to see a show on Friday night. At the time, there was a lot of speculation that she was going out on a date and that it was a lie. I'm not really sure why or where that came from. It's been very gossipy.
I still don't know how they got all this information, and a lot of it probably ended up maybe being true. So it's very strange how so quickly they found out all this information.
However, the New York Post is reporting that she went out with friends. So the source said that during her final hours on Friday, quote, she goes out with friends, and they said that they're pulling the video and the receipts from those places to kind of verify if she was there or not. The source also said that she knew the people she was out with, were talking to them. We also have to figure out, did she meet some mysterious stranger along the way? Either way, whatever ends up being true, it was known that she did go out somewhere and that she returned home between 11 and 12:30, it seems. Then jump to 4:30 a.m. A figure can be seen wheeling the bag that we now know contained Orsolya's body down the street in plain view of houses. So if you've been following this case at all, you know the picture we are talking about. It just shows a silhouette rolling the bag. It kind of looks like he might be holding something also, maybe wearing a backpack. It's one of those things where people zoomed in and manipulated this photo every which way, which never really ends up helping.
And quote, enhanced it.
Yeah.
Like when they're like, here's an enhanced image, I'm like, this is actually 1,000 times worse.
I've enhanced the image. It's like, what, you turned up the contrast?
So yeah, it does. I think a lot of the issues with this picture online and the discussion is that the bag that the person is dragging is actually a really big hockey bag. So it kind of looks out of proportion, maybe, is my thinking. So the person does look quite small, quite thin.
But it also looks like he's leaning forward a lot, like taking big steps because the bag's probably heavy. So he does look small, which made a lot of people come up with all different theories.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Tonight, authorities are looking at this surveillance video, part of their investigation showing a person dragging a duffel bag down the street. 51-year-old Orsolya Gaal's body was found in a duffel bag on the side of the road near Queens Park Saturday morning. Police following a blood trail back to her house. Investigators say Gaal was stabbed some 60 times in her home, one of her sons upstairs. Her older son and husband out of town looking at colleges. Neighbors shocked by the horrific murder.
Never expected anything like that to happen. She was a lovely lady, always very attentive to her family, her kids, just an amazing person.
Yeah, so and there's also video of him. Like it obviously was a very awkward thing to have to do. The bag looks heavy, it looks kind of overbalanced, and
it also looks like he's holding something.
Yeah, some people theorize maybe it was a skateboard, or and obviously we actually still don't know if he was holding anything, but it definitely does look like he was wearing a backpack maybe too.
Yeah, so carrying a lot of stuff, dragging a body, can't be easy. The following morning at 8:10 a.m. on that Saturday, it'd be April 16th, a dog walker noticed a duffel bag on the sidewalk laying on the ground near the corner of Metropolitan Avenue and Forest Park Drive. We believe the location is under a mile away from the family home on Juno Street. So kind of suspicious. There's pictures of where the bag is. The police kind of...
It's literally kind of half on the sidewalk, half on like the verge. It's not hidden in bushes or anything. It's just literally laying there. You'd have to step around it probably if you're walking on the sidewalk.
It's right next to the road. Even though they say it's in a park, there's still a road right there. It's not like a nice path through like a wooded park.
Yeah, it's definitely right in the middle of the public.
Yeah, and very out of place. The person who found the bag called 911 and police arrived quickly. They opened the bag and found Orsolya's body. She had not been dismembered, but she'd been shoved into the bag.
Just as a kind of a note, I've seen lots of conflicting info about if she had been dismembered or not. I'm fairly sure she hadn't been. We'll get into her wounds soon, but like they were pretty horrendous wounds. But as far as actually being dismembered, I don't think she was.
No, and I mean, hockey bags, from what I've seen, are pretty big. So,
and she looks very petite. Like I don't know how tall or how much she weighs or anything, but she's definitely not a big woman. So, you know, I've seen lots of comments and that people will be like, yep, she could have absolutely have fitted in a hockey bag.
Yeah. So the person who found Orsolya is Glenn Van Nostrand. This info is taken from news.com.au, which is an Australian source.
Yeah, this has actually been in the news a lot here. I was just having a look and there's another article today. So yeah, it's been a big one in the news here too.
And their article says, at first, Glenn thought the wheeled duffel bag had simply been discarded, but his two Rhodesian Ridgebacks, Philip and Iris, glad we got their names.
Very important.
And the dogs' names, sir. Philip and Iris got so agitated as they neared it that he decided to look inside. He said, "These are scent hounds. They see the world through their noses." He said, but to me, it looked like a mannequin. It didn't look very fleshy. It was more like a crash test dummy. I thought it was maybe some equipment being used for something. I didn't think anything of it. Then he said he saw black ankle-length jeans, a belt, and a woman's waist. He didn't see the blood on the other side of the bag until after he'd opened it. The body was in the fetal position, he said, and he added that the bag had wheels. Once the detectives arrived, Glenn dropped his dogs off at home before going down to the precinct to give a full report. But while he was trying to walk home, his dogs had other ideas. They kept pulling me, he said. The dogs led him to a spot about 91 meters from where the body in the bag was found on Metropolitan Avenue near the Jackie Robinson Parkway, where patches of apparently fresh blood were found. he said, some of the cops followed me and the dogs to it. A lot of articles were reporting that there was actually a trail of blood basically leading from the bag back to Orsolya's house on Juno Street. So we think that that's kind of what he was referring to there, that, you know, obviously you're wheeling this bag with a body in it. It's not like it's waterproof. It's just fabric. The blood's going to just leak right through.
Yeah.
So police quickly made their way back there, where they found her 13-year-old son home alone. He was apparently found on the upper floor of the property and told police that he didn't know where his mother was. The police said that he stated he lives at the location but doesn't know where she is. The boy was, for some reason, handcuffed and taken into custody to be interviewed, but later released. So I don't really know why they had to handcuff him.
And it's interesting to me, too, that he's a minor, but in all the media photos I've seen of him being handcuffed, they never blurred his face, or which I always thought they usually do if it's a minor, but they didn't in this case.
It's also weird that they just, as a minor, like put him in handcuffs and took him.
And especially without a parent there. Like, his dad was interstate, apparently.
Maybe they called
no one
him
else.
at least.
Yeah, I don't know. That's very
Maybe
strange.
they thought he was in danger. I just think it's weird they handcuffed him, because that's basically what started all these horrible rumors about the son being involved.
You would think they would only handcuff him if they really had reason to believe he was involved.
Yeah, it's just weird.
I do kind of get that he was the only one home at the time, so obviously they would have had to look at him. But yeah, the handcuffing seems very extreme.
It's also like he's 13. Like, it's not like he's a threat, really, where they're like, we have to detain him. So around this time, there was a lot of articles with headlines like husband, teenage son, persons of interest, after Orsolya's body was found in a bag, and the media caught that the son was kind of taken out in handcuffs. So that just started this frenzy of info from sources. Sometimes I feel like the news takes the initiative on some things and just kind of assume that, you know, he was in handcuffs, he's a person of interest. So just kind of like throwing gasoline on this fire, basically.
And I also think that usually the husband would always be considered as a possible suspect or person of interest as well. But
yeah. So Howard, husband, he apparently spoke to news agencies that contacted him. He told the Post he was in the middle of a terrible experience. He said, "My son Leo is safe. Thank God my son is safe." And he said that on Saturday of his younger child, before adding that his family's lives are at stake. He apparently evaded questions about his younger son being questioned and said, "There are concerns about our safety." The man claimed that their lives were at risk.
And as a kind of interesting note too, after all this happened, Howard ended up deleting the tweets about being in Portland and going to Michigan as well. And he's also locked down his Twitter account, which made a lot of people wonder why would you delete the tweet? Was like, people were questioning, was that kind of an alibi that he'd set up at the time, and different things like that. It just seemed like a strange move.
Yeah, that's what, in hindsight, it's just he didn't want people being nosy. In hindsight, if you didn't know like as much as you know now, it would look like he was tweeting that, like you said, to be an alibi, like, oh, I'm in Portland. Yeah. But also, he probably was just like, fuck all these nosy people.
It did seem quite strange that he randomly spoke to the media as well and actually told them quite a bit of information right at the start of the investigation. Like, you think that if you were worried about preserving the investigation, you probably wouldn't do that, but maybe he was just in shock or something like that as well.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes people talk to the media thinking kind of like as a comfort thing, like trying to get the story out there and like having people to talk to, but it just never turns out that way because people are just like vicious and tear apart everything everyone says.
Yeah.
After the news had said that the father and son were potentially persons of interest, on Saturday later that day, more articles were released saying that they'd been cleared. So this is kind of what we mean about there was just so much back and forth, like in the same day, almost like immediately one after another. So then CBS was saying, the media was originally told the woman's husband and son were potential suspects in the case, but now sources say police no longer consider them persons of interest. Dr. Carl Adler told CBS 2's Leah Mishkin that Orsolya and her husband were his patients, and he said they cared about each other.
This was another thing. Why is the doctor talking?
I feel like the reporters here were just contacting like anyone that might have known them and be like, do you have a comment? And sometimes people are just like, they were nice. Also, as a doctor, is this a HIPAA violation? Saying that they're your patients?
Yeah, exactly.
Tisk tisk. A friend of Orsolya spoke to CBS and gave another account of what happened on Friday night, and she also spoke more about Orsolya's personality. She said that Orsolya loved the theater, ballet, traveling, concerts, adding she was out on Friday with a mutual female friend and returned home around 11 p.m. In terms of the cause of death for Orsolya, the New York Post reported that she was stabbed to death. They said Detectives have found no sign of a break-in at the house. They believe the suspect knew the victim and stabbed her out of anger, a source said. But CBS was reporting that she died from blunt force trauma injuries. And the quote from their article is sources told CBS that the suspected cause of death was blunt force trauma.
That's kind of a great example of just the absolute polar opposites that were being reported
at the same time
from sources. Yeah, one turns out to be true, which we'll get into, but yeah, the other one was clearly not true.
Like, I get they're similar-ish in a way, but still. It's not like one was like, she was strangled, and one was like, she was shot.
Yeah.
And another strange twist, I was going to say weird, but I didn't.
Mix it up.
I know, I need to get my thesaurus out. So yeah, definitely one of the weirder parts of this case, I would say. Pix 11 and the news started reporting that Howard received a text warning him that he and the family was in danger.
So the article from Pix 11, this is a direct screenshot from that article that said, the person who killed a mother of two left a haunting message to her husband, according to police sources, saying, your whole family is next. So this is one of the things that I kind of mean about the husband telling the media a lot of information, which could have been detrimental to the investigation at the time. But yeah, that was being reported that there was a text sent to him.
Yeah. And it was sent from like her phone, if that wasn't clear.
Yeah. So a lot of people were questioning, how could the killer have gotten into the phone? You know, obviously she may not have had a passcode, or he could have used her face or her fingerprints before he dumped her, I guess.
Yeah. Orsolya's neighbors and friends have spoken out about their loss. One person said she was a very happy woman, always smiling, always joking. She loved life. The neighbor we mentioned before, John Blankson, said, what a tragedy for everybody involved. I think everyone is trying to piece together what's happened. How did this happen? Why did this happen? This is unimaginable by anyone's standards. He also said, you keep reliving the sequence of events. It's actually quite strange. The more goes on, the gravity of the situation just keeps making it worse. We're very sad, and we can't believe something like this could happen on our block.
It seems like a very nice kind of suburban, quiet neighborhood. Like, I've seen a lot of comments along those lines. Like, it's absolutely not something you would have expected to happen in that area.
A sleepy town. On April 18th, we learned some more about her apparent cause of death. An article said Orsolya sustained about 60 sharp force injuries to her neck, torso, and left arm, according to sources with the knowledge of her autopsy. Puncture wounds were discovered on her carotid artery and trachea, the sources said. She was also discovered with knife wounds inside her fingers and on the palms of her hands. It did not immediately appear that she suffered any sexual trauma, according to the sources. The Daily Mail also reported on the 18th that Howard received that anonymous text. That was what we mentioned before. It's making its rounds through the news now. They said after she was murdered, police believe the killer used her phone to text her husband to say, your whole family is next. Pix 11 cites sources who say the killer also told Howard, your wife sent me to jail some years ago. I'm back. We've gotten a few different variations of this text. Some agencies are reporting that the entire text content said, your wife sent me to jail some years ago when you were living near Austin Street in Forest Hills. I'm back. Don't call the police or I will kill your family.
So on this day, there was kind of a weird little side story that people found the social media of Jamie, who's Orsolya's oldest son, and he had two social media accounts. He was in a band, or I'm assuming he still is in a band. It's kind of like a metal, hardcore, very edgy. It makes me sound really old to say that, but it was like a very hardcore band, and that his Instagram handle was Slitter Throat, SLITTERTHROAT. It doesn't really matter now that we know more about what happened, but it just kind of added to the mess at the time. And people were like, I know he'd written a song about, I think it was called Mother, where he lay on the ground and had, red stuff around his neck. Like, it was all obviously just very, it was interesting at the time, I guess, when we knew what had happened. But now we know that it doesn't really matter and doesn't play a part in the story. But I just thought we should mention it because I know there was a lot of discussion about it online.
Yeah, and it just adds more to why people were saying some of the things they were saying. Not that again, this is just us like explaining the story. I'm not saying I agree with people like snooping around and just like blaming the sons. Like, that does feel kind of sad to me. But at the time, I understand why people were thinking this, but
he did make both of his Instagram accounts private on April 18, which is totally understandable. But it was just kind of because of the circumstances of her death, people were commenting about his Instagram and the content on the Instagram. So,
yeah. So that brings us to April 19th. At this time, there were still no arrests or persons of interest named in the case. On that day, we learned that the bag that Orsolya was stuffed in was a black Bauer hockey bag. Police believe that Orsolya knew her killer because there's no signs of a break-in, and considering the violent nature of the crime, they suspect the attack was personal and fueled by anger specifically towards her. Stabbing someone 60 times seems very personal and very angry.
And I feel like that was a lot of the reason too why people kept suggesting that the youngest son may have been involved, because that, you know, as that would be a very personal attack for him to kill his mother. So that was happening at the time as well.
Personally, I never really thought it was the son, even though it would make sense, like you were just saying, that that it would be personal. Maybe there was some anger there towards his mom. But I always thought it would be very hard for a 13-year-old, and it's not like this is like some jack 13-year-old, to stab an adult who was probably fighting back 60 times. Like 60 times is a lot. And then move the dead weight of an adult body into the bag, which even though we said, yes, she would fit in the bag, like you still have to do some stuffing into the bag and manipulate the body and then drag the body a mile down the road. Seemed like it would be a lot for a 13-year-old.
I agree, but I do also see the reasoning in terms of like, why would you bother taking it out of the house and dragging it for the half a mile? Like that kind of seemed very amateur and very sloppy, and almost supported the fact that maybe the 13-year-old at the time was involved, which obviously we now know wasn't. But like, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It would have been hard for a 13-year-old to do that, but there are some aspects of the crime that were very childlike, and almost.
Some people were saying because an adult would maybe have a car.
Yeah, exactly. That was another thing. And maybe there was a lot of talk about that maybe the person in the video was carrying a skateboard for him to get home or whatever. So, like, I feel like a lot of the speculation was maybe not fair, but understandable a little bit, that, you know, the person in the video seemed smaller, you know, thinner, which was also the stature of her son. You know, it's obviously not fair that he had to be put in that situation where he was considered a suspect or a possible suspect, but it did happen essentially in this case.
Yeah. And just another thing, one of our friends is a nurse who works in a hospital, and, you know, she's an adult female, and she even said herself, getting dead bodies into a body bag at her job, she always struggles with, and it's very hard to do, and multiple people have to do it. So that was just another thing that made me think it'd be hard.
Yeah.
Media reports were also discussing how the attack was sloppy and didn't really seem premeditated, like we were just saying. One source said he left a blood trail for 5 blocks from the house. It was like a trail of breadcrumbs. If you want to kill somebody, you try to make it a little cleaner, be a little more prepared. He didn't go with something to move her body. He took something from the house. So that all points to this wasn't really planned, or not planned very well, at least.
Yeah.
At this time, the New York City police offered a $3,500 reward for information in the case. Posters were put up around the area. Those were the ones that have the house on them that we were talking about before. The poster said, on Saturday, April 16th, 2022, at approximately 12:40 a.m., an unknown perpetrator stabbed a 51-year-old Orsolya Gaal multiple times, causing her death. The victim was found inside a duffel bag along Metropolitan Avenue in Queens.
Yeah, it was a very weird reward, a very weird poster. Like, what kind of person is going to speak for $3,500? That was discussed a lot.
Yeah.
Why didn't they include the photo of the person dragging her, or a photo of her? It's just the photo of the house.
I feel like maybe they already kind of had their eye on someone. That's why it wasn't like a bigger reward. I mean, we're just looking for more information to really seal the deal. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's weird. The poster is weird. It's just like impact font in the picture of the house. I don't know.
Just another weird aspect of the case.
Yeah. I guess we can't really bitch because they solved the case pretty quickly. Very quickly.
Yeah, in a week. Yeah. But then in saying that, they only solved it because the person came forward.
Yeah. And the person's also like an idiot, it seems. I think they would have gotten caught if he didn't come forward either.
Yeah, definitely.
So another random event. On Tuesday afternoon, the family's electrician, Arjuna Jack, stopped by Orsolya's home, which was still wrapped in crime scene tape after he heard that she'd been killed on the news. He said, "I'm very startled." He said that he was frequently at the family's home to do electrical work as well as some power washing and painting. He said, "I know her very well. Her husband's very nice. Her 2 sons are very nice as well. It's very sad." He said she was very beautiful and said that as far as he could tell, the family didn't have any issues. He said she's a very happy, jolly person all the time. I see her all the time jogging.
There was a lot of discussion about this because they're like, apparently he's not from the neighborhood. Like, why does he see her jogging all the time? It's very weird that your electrician is saying how beautiful you are. There was a lot of people side-eyeing this guy at the time, which I think a lot of it may be a language, like English as a second language thing,
Yeah.
not quite understanding, or, you know, the context isn't there. But yeah, it was a very strange insertion of himself into the case.
I feel like sometimes at times like this, the person thinks they're helping by being like, the husband's very nice, the son's very nice. Like maybe you saw they're getting backlash or something. But it's also weird. It's like, dude, why are you going to walk to this house that's a crime scene and just be like, here I am, ready to answer questions? Like, I don't know. People do interesting things under stress, I guess.
Yeah.
And some people just want attention.
Yeah, some people just want their 15 minutes of fame.
Side note, because I feel like everyone knows this type of person. Olivia and I both know someone where whenever some sort of tragedy happens, they always have to be like, oh my God, I was there once when I was 15. Or like, oh my God, like I was in the same building as this person one time. Or just always has to...
finds the most non-event connection that they can find, but it still is a big deal.
Yeah, there could be a shooting at a place and they'd be like, I had to use the bathroom there 3 years ago. I can't believe it. It could have been me.
I read a book about that place once. It could have been me.
But yeah, I feel like we all know a person like that. And if you're that person, it's okay. So some more specific details about Orsolya's movements on the night she was killed were made public. She apparently went to see a show at the Lincoln Center with her friends. When she got back to her neighborhood, she went to a bar. She sat there alone for about 40 minutes as if she was waiting for someone else. When nobody else showed up, she left.
I feel like that is probably the most likely scenario as well. Like I know we spoke before about how maybe she went on a date and all that. I feel like that has come out that is actually probably likely what happened.
Yeah, because I think 2 different things had said that she like went out with friends.
I think, yeah. And I think there was actually at the start, there was actually 3 versions. One was that she went out with a female friend. One was that she went out with friends, plural. And the other one that was that she went on a date. So I don't know, she went with one friend or friends to the show and then went to the bar. But either way, I think that's what happened.
Yeah. Online sleuths also unearthed a Facebook post that Orsolya wrote a few months ago before her death about wanting to purchase pepper spray. She said, given the recent attack on women in Forest Park and the general uptick of crimes and seedy characters in the neighborhood, I sought info here to get mace/pepper spray for my runs in the park. And she said, be safe out there. CBS and a few other agencies reported that Orsolya was known to be texting with multiple men and that police were looking into her electronic communications. Still haven't heard much more about that, but like the multiple men that she was talking to, or
I'm assuming a lot of them now will be obsolete. They won't need to look too much into it anymore. But it does, like there was multiple reports that said that there were multiple men. So I feel like maybe that has some truth to it.
Yeah. WABC reported that police have identified a person of interest, a man who had access to her home in Forest Hills. One headline said ex-handyman lover who knew of, it's a very like scandalous, gossipy headline, but
tabloidy headline.
It was probably Daily Mail, but ex-handyman lover who knew of spare key sought by cops in NYC mom Orsolya Gaal's slaying, sources. I think it was New York Post, actually, because they do the same shit.
Yeah, I think so.
They love a gossipy headline. They said it's unclear when the relationship began and ended, but according to sources familiar with the case, the man knew where the family kept a spare key at their well-kept Forest Hills home and would have been able to access the home without breaking in. So we also learned that police said that they apparently hadn't seen the threatening text that Howard received. So I don't know.
That was kind of a side-eye piece of thing. Like, well, why haven't they seen the text? Why haven't they verified his phone at the time?
Yeah, like was he lying, or were police just like not wanting to give out information? Was there a text? According to CBS, her husband told cops he got threatening text messages over the weekend. That's according to the sources again. But high-ranking authorities reportedly have not seen those texts for themselves. NYPD spokesperson Officer Cannon told Law and Crime that she cannot confirm the text. That is part of the ongoing investigation. Officer Cannon also apparently told Law and Crime on the 19th that there was no person of interest in the case.
And this was kind of interesting because this was the first time that a source had actually been named. Like, it was a legit NYPD officer saying we have no person of interest. And this was after the handyman articles and things like that. So I feel like a lot of the source information ended up being true. But at the time, it was the only kind of attributed quote was that there was no person of interest.
I feel like it's not shocking that police would publicly want to be like, stop believing all these gossip and rumors, even if they're true.
Yeah. So we're now at April 20, which was yesterday. The owner of the bar where Orsolya drank on the Friday night before her murder spoke to the media. It was at the Forest Hills Station House, and the owner was Gabriel Veras. So it was Gabriel Veras. He's actually the bar manager. He said, same thing every time, one Moscow Mule. She was a delightful lady to talk to, real classy. He said that she was at the bar on Friday night at around 11:45 to 12:30, which was a little bit later than we originally thought. Some of the reports said that she'd left by midnight, but, it doesn't really matter. It was just maybe a little bit later than we thought. He said, she was here alone, business as usual. Moscow Mule, bite to eat, talked with some staff. She was friendly, and when she left alone, it didn't seem like anything was out of the ordinary or unusual. So I had a look, and the bar was around 0.6 miles from her house, so maybe like a 10-minute walk, which the timeline kind of matches up with what the police had released. On that day too, the electrician who we mentioned earlier, Arjuna Jack, said that he had been in Orsolya's home and it had been outfitted with an extensive security system. And the New York Post reported on that day that a pair of blood-soaked boots were found in a trash can outside Orsolya's home and that the boots were being tested for DNA. And that we also learned on this day that Pix11 said that Howard, Orsolya's husband, had been cooperating with police and had given them his cell phone. So it was kind of a nothing much happened day, but I guess at least we did get some clarification on a few of the things that had happened, plus the boots, which at the time everyone was like, why is a killer leaving bloody boots outside the house? Which, very, very strange. So I went to bed last night. Things seemed like they were pretty out of control. I was wondering what was going to happen because I thought surely if it was someone in the family involved, there would have been an arrest by now. But anyway, when I woke up this morning, there was a very unexpected update. So we're at April 21 now. A man named David Bonola walked up to detectives and said, I hear you are looking for me. So David is a 44-year-old man and he had been a handyman for Orsolya and her family. So I guess the handyman headlines were correct that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Police have now said that they had been having an on-again, off-again relationship for years, and they had apparently rekindled their relationship this past April.
Police say 44-year-old David Bonola made incriminating statements in connection with the murder of Orsolya Gaal, the New York City mother of two whose body was found early Saturday inside a duffel bag less than a mile from her home in Queens. Authorities say the two knew each other and had a violent argument in Gaal's basement just after midnight Saturday morning.
Mr. Bonola is a handyman who was employed by Mrs. Gaal. They have been having an intimate affair for approximately 2 years.
Police believe Bonola used this knife, recovered at the scene, to stab Gaal more than 55 times.
Mr. Bonola placed her in the bag and, as video showed, was seen rolling the body down the sidewalks.
Police believe that Orsolya was murdered after the two had an argument on Friday night or Saturday morning. A homicide detective has said, we believe the relationship Mr. Bonola had with our victim was an intimate type relationship. He said the, quote, heated argument began over domestic issues between the two. A different NYPD detective said they had been off and on and they had broken up prior, but had reunited early in the month of April. Their relationship was considered at an end. David has also admitted that he did send those threatening texts to Howard. It was kind of an effort to deflect attention away from him and for them to kind of go on a wild goose chase, I guess, looking for this person that Orsolya had apparently put in jail. But then he left his bloody boots at the scene. So, I don't know, the whole thing was definitely sloppy, not very well planned at all. The NYPD said that authorities had collected David's jacket, T-shirt and bloody bandages as evidence, and that they had to take him to hospital for treatment for wounds on his hands before he was arrested. So it does really sound like she put up a fight for her life, which is just horrible. Orsolya and David were Facebook friends. It's quite interesting because when we were speaking about this morning before recording, Kelly, who's one of the admin in our team, she said that she'd actually looked at his profile yesterday. She was going through Orsolya's friends to kind of look at all the creepy men, and David was one of them. There was some public interactions between the two, which I'll put the screenshots on the blog. He wrote to her, "Tu Marada enamorada." I think that's how you say it. He wrote that to her in 2020. The Spanish line may have been a reference to a 1999 song. It roughly translates in English as "Your Look in Love." Orsolya liked the comment and David's profile loved it.
He loved his own comment?
Yeah. Yeah. So David has been charged with murder, criminal tampering, and criminal possession of a weapon. There is a video of him getting shoved into a police car. He's wearing a Tyvek suit, which I kind of find interesting. But anyway, he screams out, "Fuck you, motherfuckers," before they get him into the car. NYPD Chief of Detectives James Essig has said, "I just want to assure the public and especially the residents of Forest Hills that there are no outstanding suspects at the time." So it sounds like they're very, very confident that David is the perpetrator in this case. I have also read some articles that say David has 2 children and a wife that he's separated from. So
he seems a bit unhinged.
Yeah. Like there is a lot of information released in this case. Like there's a photo of him on the night of the murders. He has a very distinctive kind of afro style of hair, like very curly.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people have said he looks like Slash from Guns N' Roses. He wears skinny jeans, leather jacket. But the photo of him on the night of the murders, he's got a mask on and his hair's pulled all the way back. So I guess to make himself less recognizable would be my thinking.
Yeah. I wonder why he's in the Tyvek.
Yeah. I've seen a few questions about that. Maybe because they took him to the hospital first and just wanted to kind of preserve anything extra that he had on him. Maybe. That's all I can think. And there are some photos of him being let out by a bunch of, I'm assuming, detectives, and he does look shorter than them. So I think he probably is quite a shortish man. So that might explain why people were talking about the figure in the video maybe being the teenager, because he does look very skinny and small compared to the other men in the photo.
Yeah, I was going to say he's also like thin.
Yeah. They've also released a photo of the knife used to kill Orsolya. It's a very big knife. It would have just been horrendous. It's horrible, really, that this is what's happened to her.
Just like a big kitchen knife.
Yeah, with a big black handle, very, very sharp, pointed end.
It's been said that he may have killed her in the basement of the home. So I was wondering if like he brought this knife with him or if it was a knife that he had found in the house. But I'm assuming he probably couldn't have gone upstairs because the son was either upstairs on the main floor or the upper floor. Police made it seem like he was on the upper floor when they got there, but I'm assuming he couldn't have gone into the house like that to get a knife from the kitchen. But also, if he wasn't planning this, it's kind of a weird knife to carry around because it's not like it's a foldable knife.
Yeah, the setup of the house is kind of weird. Like I've seen some things that say it's actually a 3-story house. It doesn't look it when you look at it from the front, but there's obviously the basement underneath, which is apparently where she was killed. And I've read that the basement had a separate entry door, so you don't need to go through the front door to get to the basement. And then the son was on the highest level of the house. So I guess there couldn't have been any more separation between the murder scene and the son. But yeah, it does seem that he probably, unless there's like a little kitchenette in the basement or something, I don't know.
Yeah, or maybe like a workshop type area. Like, I don't know, kind of basement it was. If it was like a finished basement or whatever.
Maybe he just got lucky and the son was, you know, as a possibility, say, gaming and had headphones on and didn't hear anything and didn't come out of his room and he just got lucky. But then, I don't know, I feel like he must have had the knife because we're like, I'm assuming she wouldn't let him go upstairs. If he said, I'm just going to go and get a drink of water, for example, to get the knife, she wouldn't let him. Like, why would you want your son to know that the man you're having an affair with is in the house?
Yeah.
I feel like he probably had the knife with him.
Yeah. Then it's just weird because it's like, does he always carry this knife with him? Because like I said, it's not like one you could fold and put in your pocket.
And it's definitely a kitchen knife. It's not like a pocket knife or a box cutter or something that you'd have in a workshop. It's like a kitchen cutting knife.
Mysterious.
So that is it, as much as we know confirmed in Orsolya's case. I'm assuming there might be a little bit more that comes out in the next few days, but there has actually been a lot of information that has turned out to be true that's been released over the past week. So I'm not probably expecting anything groundbreaking or totally new to be released now that he's been arrested. Before David had been arrested, I asked anyone if they had questions on our social media, and a lot of them did, but some of them are now irrelevant because we know who did it. So I've picked out the ones that we can still chat now that there has been a suspect. Anna on Facebook asked, when the husband received threatening texts, did he immediately report them to law enforcement? And if so, why didn't they conduct a wellness check at the house? I'm assuming my thoughts on that, the husband was probably asleep when the text came in, like 4:50 or 5 o'clock, which would have been even earlier if he's in Portland. So maybe by the time he woke up and saw the texts, she'd already been discovered.
Yeah, it probably. Yeah, I agree.
That would be my thinking on that. Like I get if there was a bigger time period between her body, being murdered and her body being found, maybe they should have conducted a wellness check, but I feel like there probably wasn't quite enough time.
Yeah, it probably all happened around the same time.
Yeah. The other question that we got a lot was, why would someone be dumb enough to leave their boots at the crime scene? I was thinking for a while maybe they were her boots, and for some reason maybe she'd taken them off and they just got bloody in the struggle, but it sounds like they are now probably his boots. And I really feel like he's just not very smart. That's the reason why. He just didn't put a lot of thought into this, and maybe he thought that the boots would be disposed of before her body was found, which is very strange.
His thinking must have been, if they were covered in blood, that he would have left footprints and didn't realize that he was already leaving just like a trail of blood from the bag. But still, like, you wouldn't try to hide them somewhere else?
Yeah, it's just, even if he had have taken them to a bin a few more blocks down, like, they would have been harder to find, but apparently he left them in a bin right near her house, so not very clever. One of our followers, Amy Johnson on Instagram, asked, why did he even bother moving her body? It's not like he tried to conceal it, which I agree. I think it's very strange. Maybe he just panicked. Maybe he didn't. I don't know.
I think it was all just,
I can't figure that one either.
Just panic. Like,
yeah.
Even though if he had this knife, it was weird. I don't think it was, like the police were saying, and like we've said, I don't think it was planned. It was probably just like frantic, like, oh my God, I just killed someone. What do I do? And you're just like, I got to get rid of the body. And realistically, could have just probably left the body there. But your first thought's probably, I got to get rid of it. I got to hide the evidence. And then maybe he was wheeling the bag. Maybe like a lot of cars were driving, even though it was very late, but maybe some cars were driving by and like spooked him. Maybe like people were around. So then he was like, I can't just be dragging this dead body around New York City, and maybe just dumped it.
Maybe he did realize that there was blood coming from the bag, and he's like, fuck it, I'm just going to leave it here now. I'm screwed anyway. So, yeah, I don't know what his plan was in terms of dumping the body, but yeah, very strange. One that we've touched on a bit already is, how did the son not hear anything, which I also think was part of the reason why people maybe were considering him as a suspect at the start. But I think it's plausible. Headphones, asleep, we don't know. Like, for all we know, he could have slit Orsolya's throat, so there might not have actually been any screaming. Obviously, she did fight back, but maybe the basement muffled the sound. I feel like it's not totally incomprehensible that the son didn't hear a thing.
No, and in this case, I feel so bad for the family and the sons, and so many people, after we posted that a random guy had been arrested, so many people messaged the Instagram and Facebook and commented, being like, I feel so bad, I was blaming the son, and blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like what we were saying with Cleo's parents. Cleo, the little missing Australian girl, how so many people went so hard on them and just assumed they were involved because that seemed likely considering the circumstances.
Yeah. And I guess it is usually what happens. Like, generally when a wife dies, it's very, like, now that I know that she's been having an affair, that is more explainable. But, generally when a wife dies, it's usually the husband or someone in the family. It's very rarely a random person, which I guess in this case it didn't end up being random anyway.
Yeah, I've just become very careful about what I say. I try not to never really, publicly anyways. It's one thing if you're like talking to your friends or something and your words aren't posted on a public forum where it's going to be upsetting to other people. But personally, I just try not to really like do that anymore, because one, I hate being wrong, and two, you feel guilty after you are wrong, and now you just kind of feel like an asshole. So
yeah,
especially when it's kids, it's just, I wish people, like, it's okay to have theories, but I wish people would sometimes think about what they're saying a little bit more. Like, you're going hard on this fucking 13-year-old kid whose mom was just murdered in the basement, that while he was in the house, you think that's not traumatic enough? Now you have people being like, how didn't the son hear it? Like, there's literally been people still messaging being like, I don't know, I still think something's up. Like, there's always going to be those people, and I encourage you to
There still
to
will
not
be now, even though they be that person.
yeah, like, I just encourage you to not be those people. It's not always. Sometimes you just can talk to your friends. Like,
we actually in our discussion group on Facebook, we were talking about it, and I think we had like maybe 1,500 people say what they thought had happened, and someone kind of tallied it and said that 13 people out of 1,500 said it was the handyman. Everyone else thought it was the husband or the son or, you know, whatever. There was only 13 people who actually got it right. So it's a good lesson, I think, this one.
yeah, just, I don't know. I feel hypocritical saying it, but you know what I mean? Sometimes it just feels like gross to accuse people as hard as some people do.
Yeah. Even I took some screenshots from her public Facebook page, so I won't say these people's full names but they're on there if you want to go and have a look. And someone wrote, her son hacked her up. He was only 13. Can't blame NYC. If she gave her son a therapist and did group therapy, she might still be alive.
Holy shit.
And then someone else wrote, the man she went on a date killed her while her husband was out of town. So sad for the husband and the kid. Hubby thought wifey was sweet and innocent. So like people,
yeah, that's like exactly what I mean.
Feel the need to write comments like that on her public Facebook where her family are going to see it.
Yeah, some people just need to realize that their opinion really doesn't fucking matter. Like, keep it to yourself.
Especially that lady who's like, the son hacked her up. Like, I wonder, I bet she's been doing some deleting today.
Yeah. And some people like that feel no shame. They don't fucking care.
My main question that I still have is I still want to know the actual timeline of what happened. The police kind of reward flyers said that she was murdered at approximately 12:40 a.m., which I don't know if they actually know that or if they're assuming because that would have been around the time she got home from the bar.
Well, they would probably know because of the text. I'm thinking around when.
I thought the text came in though. Well, yeah, I don't know. I thought the text came in at like 4:30 or 5 though. Like around the time he dumped the body.
Like he did it way later.
Yeah. Anyway, obviously I don't know what the timeline is, but if the timeline is correct that she was murdered, just even say by 1 a.m., what did he do in the house? Was he in the house the whole time? My theory is that maybe they were in the house together for a few hours. I know they've said there was no sign of sexual assault or anything on her like that, but maybe they spent a few hours together. Maybe at the end she's like, no, I don't want to see you anymore. And then maybe he just snapped. And that's why, do you know what I mean? Like that's why that explains the few hours of time lapse in between the murder and the dumping.
Yeah. I'm also curious to know as to how she ended up meeting up with him and how they got into the basement. Like, some people have been like, oh, was he there waiting for her? Then they decided to like talk about their relationship or whatever in the basement, or did she meet up with him, like tell him to come over? Like, I just want to know how they got together.
Someone actually sent us a kind of interesting theory in relation to that. They said, I think he set her up. She was waiting at the bar for someone. I'm thinking he made a fake profile on a dating site to lure her. They set up a time to meet. The person never shows. In the meantime, he goes to her house because he knows where the key is and lets himself in and waits till she comes home. That could have also been the case without the fake profile. He could have said, hey, I'll meet you at the bar at 11:30 or whatever time, and just never showed up, and she waited for him. I think they said she waited for 40 minutes and then left.
She could have just, seems like the bartender kind of also knew of her though, and it was normal for her to be there. I mean, some people, she might not have been waiting for someone. I'm just being like devil's advocate.
Yeah, she could have just
been like a local bar
she could have
gal.
just not wanted to go straight home after and just wanted to have a drink before she went home. And
yeah, like the bartender knew she had like a usual drink.
Yeah. The New York Post are reporting that David did arrive at Orsolya's house 10 minutes after she got home. I don't really know how they know all this yet, but maybe he was watching her at the bar.
Maybe because remember the weird electrician said they had a security system? Maybe there's cameras or something, because that would kind of help, I guess.
Yeah, it could be. And I have read that they used to keep their spare key in the barbecue or something like that. So he obviously knew how to get into the house. I'd be interested to know if she knew he was coming or if he turned up and basically attacked her.
Yeah.
One other thing I just want to clarify is that we mentioned at the start of the episode about the son being missing in 2004. That was later amended in the media to be him going missing in 2021, and he was only missing for an hour. So it's just a kind of another weird point that they included in all these articles.
Yeah.
Another theory I'll just speak about quickly, because it is obviously only speculation and a theory, is that maybe Howard and Orsolya kind of lived separate lives. There's no basis to but that might explain why she didn't go on the college tour. Maybe he knew about these affairs, and there seems like there was maybe multiple if the media reports are true. So they might have kind of been living separate lives but still living in the same house.
Or maybe the other side could be maybe he didn't know about the affairs, and that's why she didn't want to go on the college trip, so she could meet up with her various boyfriends.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I'm assuming these men probably may also be, if there are men, when I say men, maybe they are also married and they probably aren't going to want to come forward either. So I don't know if we're going to learn much more about that.
Yeah.
But I think that is it as at the moment for Orsolya's case. If anything else big does happen, but I feel like now we already know her cause of death. The arrest has been made. I can't even imagine what else that there could be as an update now.
Yeah.
There is one other case that we just wanted to discuss quickly today. We've had a lot of people message us about it. On the same day that Orsolya was murdered, which was April 16th, a child was found dead in a suitcase in Sellersburg in Indiana. At around 7:30 p.m., a local resident was mushroom hunting, which if you've listened to our past episodes, you know our discussion on mushroom hunting.
So many people message and they're like, another mushroom hunter. And I'm like, damn, you guys remember everything, because even I forgot about that.
And I've seen a few messages, which is how can you hunt a mushroom?
Yeah.
Anyway. The mushroom hunter found a child's body near a roadway in a heavily wooded area of eastern Washington County, which is according to the Indiana State Police. Washington County is around 70 miles south of Indianapolis and 25 miles northwest of Louisville. The officials have described the child as a young black male between the ages of 5 and 8. The boy is approximately 4 feet with a slim build and a short haircut. Police have said that they believe the child has died within the past week. So a few days later, on April 19, 2022, police released more information about the circumstances in this case and that the child had been found stuffed in a suitcase. They released a photo of the suitcase. I feel like it's super distinctive. It's like a wheelie suitcase and it's got a Las Vegas image on it, the Las Vegas sign.
Yeah, it's an ugly ass suitcase. It's like a hard shelled suitcase.
Yeah. Something that you'd buy in Vegas as like a souvenir or something. So like people, they sell these everywhere in Vegas, but I still feel like in the rest of the country, they wouldn't be that common.
I've never seen one of those around me.
Yeah. So you would think that someone may recognize this suitcase. They conducted an autopsy on the child and the body did not show any obvious causes of death, and police are now waiting for toxicology to determine if drugs played a part in the death. The Indiana State Police Sergeant Carey Hulls said, "Our number one goal at this point is to find out the identity and name of this child. That's what he deserves." They believe the child could be from another state. The sergeant said, "We thought this would be a local case, but since nothing has happened, we haven't had any matches. This obviously could be a national thing." I have seen a lot of comments online about people suggesting that the boy may be missing child Cody Bigsby. Cody did go missing in January though, so the time of death doesn't really match up. Mm-hmm. And the sergeant said, "We don't believe that will be a match and that the investigators have already looked into that." There was a weird little kind of twist in this case that the body of a man was found in a creek in Washington County on Wednesday, April 20, 2022. People started speculating that maybe this was related to the boy in the suitcase, but it wasn't. That body was identified as 89-year-old man Harold Wilson of Seymour. A silver alert had been issued for Harold on April 19. They haven't done an autopsy on Harold yet, but I'm assuming he maybe had dementia or some type of other illness and he somehow got lost and ended up in the creek. And they've said no foul play is suspected at this time. So just wanted to mention that case because we've had a lot of messages about it, and we'll update you guys if anything does come in terms of the child's identity and the investigation into that.
Mm-hmm. So that's everything for this episode. As always, you can check out our blog at truecrimesocietyblog.com. You could see the ugly suitcase we were just talking about, pictures of the guy who killed Orsolya walk in with the suitcase, pictures of the suitcase not suitcase, the hockey bag. Sorry. You can see all that on the blog.
I feel like I'm tooting my own horn here, but I feel like I did a good job on that Orsolya blog because I updated it every single day. So it's really a timeline, like a full proper timeline of information as we learned it, with videos, clips, all that type of stuff. So if you really want to, deep dive, go and check out the blog.
Just go check it out and then let Olivia know if you think she did a good job.
Yes, please.
You can also follow us on Instagram. That's kind of where we post the most, and that's where we put the updates out fastest. And we're always asking you guys questions, doing polls, and sometimes we get stuff for the podcast from there, so maybe we'll read your opinion or your question. Definitely follow us there at True Crime Society. You can follow our personal accounts. They are both in the bio for the True Crime Society Instagram. Mine's StephSum _. Olivia's is TCS Olivia. So you could put some cute faces to these cute voices. And then, of course, there's the forum at truecrimesociety.com. Great place to talk with people about crime without all the added fluff of Facebook. Of course, there's also our Facebook page. If you want to fight someone, good place to go to fight, because everyone's always fighting there.
It is wild. It's the Wild West.
Yeah, absolutely reckless. And they make it so the page is like unmanageable. Like, I always have a hard time with comments on the page and trying to go through them and trying to find them. So it's not even like we can delete half the comments half the time. It's always a challenge.
I can't get them to load.
No.
Yeah, definitely.
So definitely check that out. Leave us a review if you haven't. On Apple, you can leave us like a 5-star review and write a nice little note. And we do read all the reviews. We repost them. So if you have something nice to say, we'd love to see it. Otherwise, please don't. And you could leave us a 5-star rating or whatever on Spotify if you listen on there. And as always, share the podcast, post it in your Instagram stories. We're always resharing it. Tell a friend, tell someone, help spread the word. It's a great way to support us. And also, if any of the sponsors this episode sound like they would be something you'd be into, definitely use our links and check them out, because it's a big help to us. And it's a great way to support the show and help us keep this going. So all the links for the sponsors will be in the episode description. You can also find them on our Instagram usually. We'd appreciate you doing any or all of those things.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next week.
I'm off to the dentist.
Oh, have fun. Bye.
See ya.